there is this untapped potential around every entrepreneur. It's the most underutilized thing for companies, their network.
If you're a growth marketer, what are things you're finding that really work well nowadays that you think everyone should be doubling down on?
I wanted to build something that bigger than me. It's something that would touch more people.
Welcome to the next episode of the Entrepreneurial Excellence Podcast. Most founders obsess over product market fit. The best obsess over go-to-market fit. But today's guest believes the next frontier isn't either. It's go-to-network fit is the main focus. Olivier Roth is the co-founder and chief growth officer of The Swarm, a platform helping companies and investors unlock the hidden power inside their extended networks through structured relationships, data, and orchestration. Before The Swarm, Olivier bootstrapped TimeLapse into a seven-figure growth agency serving startups and global brands like Rakuten, Lyft, and Stanford Research Park. He's built growth engines, scaled teams, led turnarounds, optimized RevOps, and helped companies turn relationships into revenue. Now he's building infrastructure around something most founders treat informally, their network, which is maybe, I would say, the most important thing in our AI world. Olivier believes that your unfair advantage isn't your pitch deck, it's the relationships you can activate. We'll explore the evolution of go-to-market to go-to-network, the future of relationship capital, and what entrepreneurial excellence looks like when growth is powered by people, not just performance marketing. Olivier, welcome to Entrepreneurial Excellence.
Thank you for having me, Adam. Glad to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd like to start things off with a fairly simple and straightforward question, maybe straightforward. How do you define entrepreneurial excellence in the first case? Like, what does that actually mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, entrepreneurial excellence has many dimensions. To me, it's basically like building a system that compounds and building trust as a compounding system, especially in our world of like relationships. So obviously it's like disciplined execution, organizational excellence, like having like systems and processes in place that run smoothly. But like from an entrepreneurial standpoint, it's like you start with very little and you grow a company right from the ground up. So what your most underutilized asset is trust. And so building like compounding trust. And one of the main ways to do that is to utilize your network, even though it's small initially, and as it grows, like keep fueling that.
So can you be more specific? Like what is I don't get it, right? What does compounding trust mean, and especially in relationship to a excellent entrepreneur? Like why is an excellent entrepreneur someone who has compounding trust, and what does that really mean?
Yeah, so I believe that trust travels. Have your own network, know the right people and have influence over like the right people. And so the trust that, your potential customers, investors have in your network, you can sort of borrow that. And the best entrepreneurs are on this topic, like some of the best at that is to sort of like, ask for the right introductions, right? To be very, very tangible with it. Utilize like, social media to associate themselves with the right people. And that's like where we see like trust compound. It's not just like it's like your team, your investors, your advisors, your partners, your customers that creates this like compounding trust and that only grows over time.
How does one know if they have compounding trust? Like, I guess define that still a little bit more, right? I know I'm pushing you a little bit here, but I still don't fully get it. Like, once again, going back to definition of like, what is not a great entrepreneur? If it's compounding trust, and I want to move on from it, but like, if it's compounding trust, like, I still want to understand, like, what is that depth? How do I know how the whole point is like to learn how to be a great entrepreneur, right? So that's the whole point of the podcast is what does great entrepreneurship look like? I can definitely buy into the idea that having a strong network and a network that you can utilize for better outcomes for your company is a high ROI.
Right.
How do you judge if you're doing that, or how do you go build a great network? Like, what does it mean to build a great network?
Yeah. So your network is obviously like people who know of you and trust you. And if you ask them for an introduction or a quick favor or whatnot, like are most likely to answer yes. So they know of you, they know they trust you as an entrepreneur who delivers and build great companies. And if you were to ask someone, they will know of you and they will like it. So this is a long list of people, and most people like think of like their LinkedIn network as their whole network, but it's only really like one part of it. It's like who you've worked with in the past, which is like a long list of people, right? Who know of you, and in this context, even like past investors.
But everyone has that, right? I mean, in theory, everyone in the whole
Yeah.
world has a network of people that they can call on.
Yeah, most people like underutilize it because, well, first of all, it's like mapping your network. It's like literally like sitting down and like, okay, like making that list of people, and you can easily come up with like 10 names, but if you really dig in, there's like hundreds and hundreds of people. And that's one of the realizations of the swarm, is that like untapped potential around like every entrepreneur. Your happy customers are part of your network. Like there are folks that trust you, that trust your solution. They're probably like one of the biggest, like, part of your network for warm intros.
This could be applied to everybody in the world if they have a network of people, right? They have their friends, their family, people who believe in them, people they've worked with, people with colleagues, things like that. What makes for an entrepreneur who's really good at what they do, where it's like different? Like what makes someone like what makes a great networker different from a okay networker, or like someone who just has like friends and relationships?
The main component to me is it's very like principle first, from first principle standpoint. It's to give before you ask. So your network is something that you build over years, and not something that you can just go and ask like for favors and intros and so on. Like it's about like this principle, like I'm going to authentically show up with my network, like meaning checking in and staying in touch and caring about like their challenges and so on, authentically, and giving before you even like start like asking. And so that's the difference between like just having the network and nurturing your network. And that's done over time. And like some of the best, like some of the people who are sort of making the most of their network are the ones who are giving the most to their network. And so that's like step one, is being in that mindset and actually like, actually doing it.
What does that look like for you or your co-founder David? Like, what does it look like for great? I assume you'd view yourself as like a great networker. What does that mean for you? Like, do this? Do you follow up? You have 12,000 followers on LinkedIn. Do you follow up with all of them on a regular basis? Like, how are you massaging your network and growing it?
Yeah, so there is a difference between your audience and your network. And your audience can virtually be like, you can have millions and millions and millions of followers, right? Like, and so there is a distinction, and LinkedIn blurs the line a little bit by calling everyone a connection and so on. There is a difference between your audience and your network as a person, and also, as a company. So I'm not following up with every single person that follows me on LinkedIn. That would be like way too many, but like this like circle, like the closer circle.
So how do you define that closer circle? Like once again, like I'm trying to be like very specific. Like what are the things that a specific founder should do to try to be fantastic when it comes to building and growing their network and being that excellent entrepreneur? If that's like the definition of an excellent entrepreneur, what should someone who's great at this do?
Basically like starts with mapping it, like just to create that, like, the swarm is one tool that you can use for it. There are other tools for that like part, which is like understanding like who are those people, and just like having that folks that are like potentially like part of like your immediate like close network.
Well, when you say map, what do you, sorry, like when you say, like, how do I define my immediate close network? What does it actually look like? Like how, like I want to go do this myself, right? I think I'm a decent entrepreneur. I could buy in the fact I should be doing more with my network. How should I be mapping that and like identifying who the top people are I should be following up with and being close with?
Yeah, there's no really easy way to do it, and that's one of the components we build in the swarm. For example, like from your LinkedIn connections, you can download your LinkedIn connections, and then like you can import them into the swarm. You can import also like your Google, uh, your Gmail for your email contacts and calendar contacts to be imported. Your former colleagues also automatically all get mapped, and then we automatically calculate a score, right? So there's confirmed, likely, or potential, and it's essentially those like circles of engagement. Like if you exchange emails and you're connected on LinkedIn and you work together in the past, that's like a confirmed relationship. And so this is one of the ways to do it, to, do that on the swarm, to get that like very easily, to get like that list. And there's so many people that you probably haven't thought of as like, people there's other ways to do that. Adio, we use Adio as our CRM. Adio is amazing because it has that connection strength built. It's only using email, recency and frequency. but it shows you like who you have the strongest score. So after 6 months of using it, you have this list of 200, 300 people that have like very strong connections. Those are people you're constantly in touch with, of course, inside of your company, but like most interestingly, outside of the company. So very tactically, yeah, there are just like two ways to sort of like, build that.
But then what? Okay, now I've identified who my top network is, people I should be focused on. Then what? Like, what are the things that a great entrepreneur is doing with that identified group of people?
Different ways to do it. For my world, like marketing and growth, I tend to try to offer like, content, opportunities, podcast, webinars, article, repost their stuff, engage on like on LinkedIn with those people, get on calls, refer business, right? So that's like from my like personal angle.
To what end goal? That's just for you to show these strong connections that you're someone valuable.
And add value. Yeah, add value. I mean, I build marketing systems and like run like marketing from Scrum. So, and we do a lot of content. So there's a lot of opportunities to like help also others in the network. Like for example, I sat down with like Jared Robin, yes, founder at Rev Genius. Not that he needs like he needs like the Swarm to propel his brand, but like we did like an interview. I sent him like the recording with like all of the shorts like edited for him to reuse and so on, to talk about his next business and whatnot. Yeah, that's one like angle is like content opportunities, promoting, other people's business. And then like at the personal level, there's obviously like with a smaller maybe group of people, coffees, lunches, when like possible, inviting someone in your community or whatnot.
And then the end goal is like, how do you define the end goal? Once again, for like an excellent entrepreneur, what is the end goal of doing this? And why is this better than all the other things that I should be spending my time on?
The end goal is to build a strong network that you can then like lean on and tap into for the introductions that matter the most to you. So there can be different angles, but like as an entrepreneur, you're typically going to have potentially like fundraising. And so that's one like end goal is like I'm going to lean on my network of like founders to ask them for intros to their investors, to their angels and whatnot. Another one is like, go to market. Like I have like those hundreds of like ideal customers. I have my list of like dream, customers. I'm going to try to tap in my network to ask for introductions to those people. So that's like, two common angles. Another one is like recruiting. I need like talent for my company, obviously, like I need the best talent possible. I'm going to lean in on my network to get intros to like the best or recommendations, not just intros, but like recommendations to the best people possible. So it's really like the end goal is company building. I mean, fundraising, sales, and recruiting. That covers like a lot of like the main like pieces of company building, which are different from product. But you asked like, why should I spend time on this versus like other activities? One that's like not urgent but important. It's one thing that you're not putting out fires and so on, so it's easy to not do it. Like building the product and internal meetings and like and so on, and working on the roadmap and working on like the technology and is obviously a big part of being an entrepreneur, especially like early stage. And it's easy not to do like the building your network and nurturing your network part for when you need it.
Well, so how do you think through the ROI? Like, how should a founder decide where to spend their time? If they're like, I should spend my time on my network, or spend my time on building a sales pipeline, or spend my time on building product. How do you decide where to spend that time?
I think like having a continuous, like maybe like 10% or 20% of your time on that, depending on the phase you're in. Like if you're in the first like 100 days, you're building an MVP, like, okay, your head's down working like on the MVP, you're maybe not like going out and networking a lot. That's fine. There are some sprints in the history of a company where you're not going to do that. But like besides those like very particular times, just having dedicated times like to do that. So I mean, I don't know, it can be like blocked time in your calendars to do that. Or
Is that
like,
what you do to spend like how much time a day do you spend on like nurturing your network?
we do that a lot because of the nature of like the swarm, I would say. I don't like block time in my calendar, but I easily spend like an hour a day, so like 5 hours a week, so half a day, I guess, or over like half a day a week. So that's 10-15% of time doing that. I think it's just a good rule of thumb if you want to put a number on it to dedicate some time to do that. Yeah.
Okay. So walk me through a little bit about like your last company, how you built it into a great agency. What did that look like? And why did you move on sort of from it? Or what happened with TimeLapse?
Yeah. So I bootstrapped TimeLapse starting in 2014. I moved to SF in 2012 from France, and I just like changed world completely, obviously in terms of like the business world and like being in touch with like a ton of entrepreneurs around me, like friends that were starting their own companies or being freelancers and so on. I just realized like that it's something that's possible. And of course there are like startups in France and so on, but I was just not in that world as much as in San Francisco. It's like around, every other person is somehow in like entrepreneurship. So
Totally.
I saw that, caught that like, virus, so to speak. And I've just always been doing it in my previous companies. I've been starting new product lines or or training. Like I started like a training series from the companies I was working in before, and essentially just like generated enough revenue to pay for my own salary. And my boss was very happy about that. And I was like, okay, I was like an intrapreneur, type. So I decided to go, out there and start trying myself. And I was a marketing consultant initially. I was like, that's my big idea. I'm gonna freelance. I'm gonna be like,
This is when you were in France, or you moved over to
like, that's in SF, like 2014. I'm a marketing consultant. And because of the fact that I was just very hands-on with my clients, like I wasn't just like talking about marketing strategy and whatnot. I was like, okay, let's do it. Let's build the website. Let's actually like, get stuff done. I quickly needed to hire a designer and then a video person, and then I hired like a motion designer, and then I hired like a website like person or like fractional developer. And so organically it sort of grew to over the years to like a dozen people, but that was built very organically to answer to the needs of our customers. And they loved that they could have like a mini marketing team fractionally that could like deliver on not just like the strategy but also like actual execution.
I mean, obviously, like I'm a big believer in the idea of fractionalizing everything that's not your core competency, so including marketing. So then, wait, so then how far along did TimeLapse get, and then why did you decide to move on from it?
I moved to Denver 2019. I opened an office in Denver. So we have two offices now. I have like 10 people, like four and six, like four in Denver, six in SF, 20 or 30, like, contractors that are doing pieces of projects and so on. So I didn't hire at that point, like really, people to manage the team. So it was me doing this like sales and like managing like a lot of project management. So sales plus project management plus most of like the HR and ops and things like that. And it was like, that well. Yeah. So I tried to hire in those areas, which helped. I had a project manager which helped and so on. But it eventually like it's sort of like I burned out a little bit like at the end of it. And then we had a couple people that were actually key hires that left. And so it made me like take stock on like, okay, what do I want to do? Do I want to like rebuild the team, hire those like next like rock stars and learn from like the last at that point it was like 7 years. Do I want to learn from the last 7 years, or do I want to sell the company potentially and move on to something else? So I try to sell the agency. The agency, like an agency business is hard to sell because it's like service, obviously. So it's a lot is attached to like the team delivering. And I had a few offers that were just not very appealing to be honest. Like you join this, get this director role and you get like a ref share of the bigger firm, but there was no cash component and so on. And I had like over 7 years, I had built a little bit like of a war chest. And I thought, all right, like now we're down to six people. I have this like this money that's been accumulated in the business. And at the same time, like David was like starting the swarm. And so those things came together. Like the offers I'm getting are not good. I'm a bit burnt out from this model. I need to move on. I learned a lot. That was amazing, but I need to move on. And I want to build something scalable. And at the same time, I had this opportunity to work with David on the swarm, so product and so on. So all came together. My daughter was born the same time too. So
Congratulations.
4 years ago, and so it was like good time to like move on. So told the team, told the clients, gave it like 3-4 month transitional, give everyone a severance and so on. It's a little bit like awkward. Like, well, it's been 7 years. We're actually like closing now, but the it was COVID at the time as well, which everybody was working from home and so on. And it was sort of a natural like ending to that chapter.
What were the
But
key lessons learned? Like, what would you have done differently if you could go back in time? How would you have
I'm
done?
the co-founder
What, how would you?
because you can split like the well, you can split the work. Like, for example, if I had someone who was very, very proficient in sales, like the person that you have taken like all of like the biz dev, and I would have taken more like the solutions and PM and product part, I guess we'd call it. I didn't have that, so I was like sort of like solo at the top with a lot of very talented designers and so on who their craft is delivering like beautiful websites and branding and so on, which was awesome. But I just didn't have that like early on, that like either co-founder or like like right arm, niche out. I This one is like two-sided because I did not more specialize too much because I just loved working with different customers. I mean, we built like, we were in San Francisco, so we were building with like tech, biotech companies mostly, but then there are other like types of businesses. And for branding, websites, and early stage marketing, it's just so fascinating to work with different companies, different founders, and different verticals. I learned so much from stuff I thought that I never knew about before. That it was a choice not to specialize, but it was also like at the end of the day, like if you want to grow past like 1 million, 2 million revenue, I think you need to find your niche, because we were a little bit too broad
Yeah.
in terms of.
Why were you unable to find it, or what were you doing differently where it made it difficult to find that niche? Or like, was it just because the revenue potential from a wider group seemed better? Like, why go wide versus go deep?
We were bootstrapped, right? So we have, let's say we had at some point 12 customers. If we say now we're going to specialize in like in biotech, it was like challenging to say no, to it. But I think that's like something I should have done at some point. Put a stake, in the ground. Be like, now we're like the early stage biotech marketing firm, and build your positioning around it. Why I didn't do it? Like, yeah, because we had like other opportunities like coming in, and sort of like there were like exciting companies in different aspects. But if I had to do it again, I would from day one or year one, like find like a sweet spot and just like specialize. That's something I would have probably done, but I don't regret it because I had such a blast. Right?
Of course.
And we met so many different people and so on. It was like really cool. So
And then why the swarm? Like, why doing things related to networking in your network itself? Why was that in your mind the next big thing?
I wanted to build something scalable. I
How do you,
wanted to.
for the audience, how do you define the swarm? Can you define it for everybody?
Yeah, so the swarm helps companies make the most of their network to grow, and particularly primarily for sales. And it helps you map and activate your network for your team, of course, but also like your stakeholders, people that are orbiting your company, that are around your company, and that know of you and are interested in your success. We map their network, we combine it, we make it searchable so you can ask for intros. And we now do that in a way that's like um, accessible via API and MCP. So you can, pull up like Claude and say, do we have intros into marketing executives at Salesforce through our network, and find the top 3 people and draft an email, because that's what, of course, Claude can do. Like, so this is kind of like the one of the use cases of it. I wanted to build something scalable. I had the experience of like the bootstrapped business, the bootstrap service business, and I knew it was hard to scale beyond a certain like size, and I wanted to build something that was like sort of like bigger than me, and like something that would touch more people, and a product. I'm like, okay, I want to build a software that's like gonna be much more scalable. And so I relearned like marketing and growth, learn like product led growth and so on, to sort of like reshape my career around that. And I feel like I really sort of like
What are some of the key growth? What are since you're a growth marketer, what are things you're finding that really, really work well nowadays that you think everyone should be doubling down on?
I preach my own stuff, which is like warm introductions. Like in terms of return on investment, it's the most underutilized thing for companies, their network. And so warm intros, if you're not like tapping into your network, you're missing out on like a key channel, that's like underutilized. Creating that channel for you is like essential. And that's something that not enough like companies do. I think people think it's like just early stage at the very beginning. You're gonna use intros at the very, very beginning. But like, even like a larger firms like 100, 900 people, like there is no reason not to tap into your network. And as you grow, your network grows with you. And maybe you go up market, you sell to enterprise now, you sell to bigger companies, like you should just keep activating and keep like tapping into your network for intros. So that's one. The other one, I think it's like building owned like audiences. I mean, it's a bit saturated, but like building an audience on LinkedIn and YouTube and newsletter, whatever the format is. And as you grow, you may have all of those things, but like initially, maybe you find like where you shine, or where there's the best like audience for your own product. Doing that early on like really works because it compounds. And there is like your network, and then there's your audience, right? You can tap into your network too to to find great speakers, to find great like content to talk about, to help you promote your content to your audience. With AI now, you can save a lot of time in the actual execution of it. What needs to be human and what needs to be like very like deliberate is like the messaging and like what you stand and the values, I guess, and like and where you're gonna talk about, in your content. But then like editing videos, taking a video and turning it into like multi-form content and YouTube shorts and so on. Like you can automate a lot of that. And so what used to be before, it takes an agency or other agencies like video agencies or whatnot, or uh, tons of people like working on that now can be like done easily. So I think like you're missing out if you're not like doing that. And there is a network component to it because you can tap into your network as well for that.
Are there people who do this really well? Like, do you think there are people like, oh my God, like this is some of the best networkers that you've ever seen?
I mean, that do the content really, really well.
And just like people who are great at reaching out and nourishing and nurturing their network.
I think David, like our CEO, is really, really good at that. Like to always like stay in touch with his network and grow his network and whatnot. Lolita Taub is one of our angel investors, and she's clearly a very strong networker because she shows up when we ask her something. She shows up, and she shows up authentically, and you can tell like she's just like she's doing that with like a lot of people. And then when she posts something on LinkedIn, she gets like such engagement. I think it's like correlated. She's just very giving, and she's built like this like very responsive audience her too.
What's the future? What's the future of like the go-to-network space or networking in general when you think about like AI futures, the world we're going into? Like, what's the future?
Yeah, so a lot of like the emails and content and so on can be like AI generated. And so that creates a lot of noise, obviously. And our thesis is that relationships are going to be even more important, like human to human relationships are going to be even more and more and more essential. More AI slop out there, and that's going to create more noise. I don't see like that trend like reversing really, and more like cookie cutter hacks, to get like some attention and so on. And so the future, I think, of buying is even more into like leaning on your network. And I'm saying the future of buying, not just the future of selling. It's like what we're doing with Go to Network is we're seeing like that buyers are actually leaning on their networks to like make decisions. I mean, to get like input and to make buying decisions. And so what we're doing with Go to Network is like matching that from the seller standpoint. We're like, well, in order to break the noise to potential buyer, leaning on their network. So the future of that, right now we have warm intros. Beyond intros themselves, there is like influence. So asking for warm intros is just one of the ways to use your network. Leveraging your network for promotion, to invite, like you create an event, and then you leverage your network to invite people to that event. That's not an intro. That's actually like, and to get then access maybe to like people that if you were to invite them directly, you wouldn't get them in your event, but like you guys want to. So there is like all those plays that I call like influence. That is like just a broader, if you zoom out a little bit, like it's broader than just intros. So intros is only the beginning. I think like once you've mapped your network, you actually show up authentically, you nourish, nurture your network, and you tap into your network regularly, then you start to see those other plays. And we're only like starting to like, experiment with those and trying to build products around, those plays. And that's where it's going. It's only widening in terms of surface area. So
so to kind of wrap things up, like what do you view as if you have to give a single piece of advice to every entrepreneur to be like truly successful or hit kind of entrepreneurial excellence, is there a single piece of advice that you kind of wrap it all together and be like, if you do just this is where you're going to get to with a great outcome?
for early stage founders or people who are listening to this, thinking of starting a company, it's like be extremely deliberate in like, finding like the right problem fit, meaning like a problem that you intimately know and live, and not just something you like came up with like 3 months ago, but something that's like actually recorded. Because entrepreneurship is hard, and if you don't like live it or deeply sort of care about it, when you hit those like hard times, it's hard to carry through if you don't have that like deep like obsession, about the problem. Just be super deliberate about like your about that. Your co-founders, I mean, it's like companies are successful or not based on, I think, like the founding team. It's just like having a very like talented, obviously, and team, and also like just a team that can work really, really well together. So anything you can do to like little pilots, little projects, little things to really understand how you work together is key, because a lot of companies just don't go through those hard times, and it's just the nature of entrepreneurship. There's gonna be some tough spots to go through, and like those two things can carry you through.
Totally. Olivier, how can folks find you if they want to get in touch, learn more about you, the Swarm, you name it? Where can they find you?
Yeah, LinkedIn. Obviously, I post a lot on LinkedIn. So feel free to add me, message me, and trying to be responsive, and probably like the best place to reach out. And then the Swarm, the software itself and the API is open. There's like a free trial, no credit card up front, whatnot. It's like open even like to test the API live. It's just like you can just like sign up on the website. So theswarm.com is like where to learn more about it and try it out.
That's great. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. Your time is precious, so thanks for spending some of it with us.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Thanks for having me.